get to stuff like this. Operational maintenance savings is like 25-35% a year in savings. It's not equipment breakdowns are reduced 70-75%. It's just, it's amazing. And that's where your true value is, because you're empowering your customers. Say, hey, look at this, I'm making you more efficient, giving time back every day. You can now be proactive, you're not running around with a fire extinguisher, putting fires out all day long. You can actually make some change.
Actually, I'd like to add to, Brad and I were just talking about analytics deployments, and there's a little bit of inertia there, right? You might agree with me that it's been slow to adopt out in space, right? And we were just talking, so I just came from a consulting background for several years before Mr. Miller hired me, and we advised the GSA on their smart building practices. And one of the things that we always talked about with them was workflow transformation in the building first, right? So you can't just go in and say, okay, we're gonna drop analytics in, and y'all are gonna get all these sparks, and you're gonna be able to go out and take care of your equipment. They might not be staffed for it. They might not want to have that much work on their plate. They might ask you to integrate it to their CMMS platform. So there's gonna be a lot of questions. So the best thing to do, and Brad, you mentioned it, like just ask those questions up front and be quiet. I thought that was a really good comment you made earlier when we were talking about that. So, it's the top down. Like, let's transform the organization first, and then you'll be ready for what's to come with the data. Make sense? So the scope of services, what's out there, right? I'm going to go back to educating clients. Folks have heard things like IoT, analytics, all these fall protection. And they're like, that sounds cool, but what does it really do, right? And getting that question sometimes, it's hard to answer. Okay, how do I relate this, right? So again, that's that consultative process that we think is important. And Brad, I want you to speak for the data harvesting, because you've got some analytics background there, so how important?
Yeah, again, like I said, all the data in the world is great, but you gotta do something with it, right? You have to, it's not good enough just to bring it in there, right? You have to, and as he was saying, you gotta ask the questions of, how do you want to use this data, right? Do you just want to make it really more comfortable? Do you want it for compliance? Do you just want to track what one building in your portfolio is performing to another building, right? I got two similar sites, why is this one using twice the energy on this one? Okay, let me look at my analytics and see. So setting those goals to say, just what do you want to get out of this? Do you want to spend the money? If you want to spend the money, here's how we can help, and here's what that payback is. But just learning what their needs are for data is massive, because there is just so much. We're talking about alarm fatigue, but when you start pulling in some of these data points, I mean, you're looking at BAS data every 15 minutes. I was just down in Florida, University of Health, they have 300,000 points at their hospital, training every 15 minutes, and they've been doing it for the last 10 years. And if you don't have somebody there that's not only looking at the data and creating actionable stuff, but if you're not finding a way to move it from that report and that action to somebody who can actually go do something with it, if there's not a process for that, you're going to lose all the efficiencies and the savings, operation, and energy that you would have gained from doing that action. So it goes well beyond it. It's putting a process into place. And it's not for everybody, right? Everybody's not set up to do that. They don't have the people on staff to do it, which allows us to come in there and say, hey, well, we provide that service, right? We can come in there and monitor your data, help you out, and give you things that you should be doing, and tie savings to that too, right? Again, there's energy savings that are involved, but the operational maintenance, you can take things off their plate and make their life easier. So all of a sudden, that area that has given them problems in the last 2 years, after 6 months of analytics and running and finding the true issues with that, if they forget about that, I mean, it makes their life so much easier. Right?
Visualization. This is something I love, right? You all seen, or by now have probably seen the new command UI. There are several other ways to visualize data, but it's important for us to get the data out in front of people who want to see it. Who wants to see it right now? Occupants of buildings, parents, and of course, facility managers and teachers. I mean, everybody wants to know how's the building going, And there's going to be an education process there for the end users as well, which gives us the opportunity, if I can use the term train the trainers, right? These folks are going to have to tell parents and teachers alike, what does this data mean? you say my building's within this range by you. Does it matter? Is it good? Is it bad? Like, what happens if it turns into a 10? Well, nothing. It's just it's bad, right? So visualizing that data in a concise way, getting it in front of the right people, and making sure that we can get it to enough places at the same time.
Yeah, I think, and again, that's extremely important because not everybody's going to want to get into the 15-minute interval data and look at graphs and see what's doing it right now. Everybody's going to want to do that. But if there's important KPIs that you can give somebody and say, hey, first thing in the morning, I'm going from my computer, here's the 10 things I need to do today that are most critical for my building. You're going to do that. You don't need to get into the weeds and see what's happening. It's going to tell them whether it's a report, KPI, a little dial on your screen that's telling you to go fix that. There's tremendous value in that to kind of bridge that gap of people that are really ready for analytics and have a team that can get into the weeds and do stuff, to the people that are like, you know what, I want to know what's going on in my building, but I want to know exactly what I need to go pay today without going to dig for it.
So, just for druthers, have any of you gone out to Google and like searched on what are the elements of indoor air quality? How do I report it, or what is it? The reason I asked, and not that there's a right or wrong answer to that, right? But I did, as we were getting ready to do this, like, okay, I'm gonna get up there and talk to folks who, the majority of are much smarter than me. I need to know, what are the elements of it? And it took me a lot of time to get past first all the ads and the analytics, which I think was the first 2 or 3 pages of it. But then getting into each, I guess you'd say, independent article, some from Stanford. I think Google put one out as well. I mean, like their own from the point that they did. But it was interesting. The common thing it kept coming back to was analytics. So they literally said the best way to do it is to deploy analytics in your building and then take that data and report IQ with it. And there were elements of it. I mean, gosh, again, humidity, CO2, you name it. I mean, it's like a composite score, and there are a lot of arguments about which score is better than the others, right? So I would, just challenge you to go out there and try to educate yourself on it and, get ready for some maths.
I think that's what you're saying too, the M&V of solutions, when we're talking about measurement verification. Having something running in the background can empower your customers even more to say, you know what, I'm going to commit into an LED. Let me sell me an LED retrofit, right? I just so happen to have an analytics package with your LED installer, and this is what my baseline was before you came in. Here's what it said. If you're going to guarantee a certain amount of savings, I can prove it, right? Same thing with my designs. If I'm an engineer, I'm going to come in and tell you I'm going to improve your indoor air quality. I have analytics from there. Okay. I'm gonna hold you accountable to it. You're gonna sell to me with some skin in the game because I can prove it whether it worked or not. It's the same thing with ECMs and energy savings, right? If we're gonna go in there and say, hey, I looked at it, my economy, I'm letting too much outside air, great. I can now see what that impact was yesterday when it was bad, and how today when it's good. How's that impacting not only energy, but how is that impacting all the rest of my systems, my air handlers, my VAVs, my children, all that kind of stuff.
So that actually leads us into retro commissioning. Now, there's a term that I thought had gone the way of the dodo. So when it came back up in our discussion, it's like, really? Is that going to be something that's going to be an element for this? And the short answer is yes, right? Because why? So many buildings have drifted so far out. I mean, it's the same old story. We've all been through retro commissioning training, but it is part of this. It's something that, again, you can't manage what you don't measure, or you can't manage what you don't even know the baseline is for, right? So I do think that there is a tremendous opportunity to go out and have that discussion with the end users, or the engineers for that matter, about retro commissioning. The other part of that then, of course, monitoring-based commissioning, which is a newer term, but has a ton of merit, right? I'm not sure, again, I'm going to pull you on. Have you heard, or have you been doing monitoring-based commissioning, or have been asked to?
Under a different term.
Okay. What?
It's continuous commission.
Okay, very well. Continuous commission. Yeah, I have heard that. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so that's another thing about when we're looking at indoor air quality, and especially with the issues we see today, where you can find out a lot. It's just go in there and do a retro commission, do a facility condition assessment, and say, hey, 5 years ago my building was built already, it was fine, I didn't have any issues. Well, let's go through it now and see if it's still performing to those design standards. nothing's been done, I guarantee it's not. I mean, usually it's 6 to 8% drip. You've got a great building, that building's gonna drip 6 to 8% every year. Without doubt, the sensors are gonna fail. Things are gonna be put in override. And you're not gonna know about that without being able to track and look at it. One single $150 sensor somewhere can impact a sequence of operation that can absolutely screw up your chill water. You can't do chill water resets, you can't do things, you can't stage your machines correctly. Too many pumps are coming out, you get low delta T. It's just amazing the ripple effect some of these things can have if you don't have the processing mind in place to look at that and find these. That it's going to continue on that until somebody goes in and says, oh man, this is a terrible life. I'm chewing up compressors, my pumps are failing, my energy's awful. So just going in and developing a new baseline for some of these customers to say, hey, your building was designed at this level, we came in at the baseline, it's down here, okay? What is it going to take for you to get back up to this level or beyond?
So, design elements, right? So, what are the, I'll call it the deliverables, or what's going to impact IEG, right? Well, again, we're back to ASHRAE, of course, ventilation design, just making sure that we get enough fresh air into the building, that's properly tempered. Like that in there, just based on my previous comment. IAQ sensors. Again, what is an IQ sensor? Is that something that I can buy? Is that one thing? The answer is no, right? So we have to go back and have to talk to people about what that is. Temperature, humidity, you can see it. Filters. I kind of like this one, just from the standpoint of they can impact you positively if they're good. They can also impact you negatively if they're good, because we're pulling energy, right? And if they're, again, there's, well, I don't want to get too far on that tangent because it's into the weeds, but there's two schools of thought on this right now, but I think filtration is going to be very important with regards to the more the better, or the cleaner the better, or the finer. So, and then treatment. Now this is the thing I go back to, which knee-jerk reaction, right? We saw it's not a specific space. Question is, folks got money and they were like, okay, they went to the mechanicals and they went to the solutions providers and said, we need stuff in here. Okay, how's it working? Just put it in. So, again, air treatment, big part of that, ionization, UV, etc. So, any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned this earlier in the previous one, but when we're looking at design elements or things that we can do to make things better, the other things you need to educate your customers about, and I'm sure you guys all know this, is you can't just walk on a shelf and pick any of these things out. Have the filters are months out. So somebody comes in and says, oh, I'm just going to replace the filter. Good luck getting it. It's not, your Amazon Prime that's going to be there tomorrow. All this stuff is, we're seeing that across the board. It's taking a lot longer to get equipment. So having that conversation to say, you need a plan for this. I have a solution for you. I got to look at it. Again, there's that sense of urgency that, again, it's not fear-based, but just to let you know, hey, this is the world we live in right now. Until things get better, it's going to take you 20 months to get an area. It's going to take you 8 months to get have a filter. Just got to educate your customers about that because it's the society that we live in, right? We want something, we get it the next day. And building doors are a little different. They want something right away, and they're have to be educated to know that that's not possible.
They have to be educated on how the filters actually operate and that they don't need to be replaced on schedules, right? They need to be replaced based upon pressure drop across the building. And that seems to be one of the very things that we see a lot of our customers starting to migrate to. It's not just a matter of changing filters, it's a matter of changing filters when they need to be changed. And that adds more to, when you talk about opportunity service for things on the control side, ability to sell more devices and more controls and enhance their services.
And we talk about the ripple effect. Replacing a filter with something that's better is going to have an impact on everything else in the system. Right? Your fans are going to have to work harder if there's electric pressure.
That was the biggest thing we saw. Was most customers said, I need to go to these, higher grade filters, Nerf 13 or whatever they were going to, and you're like on a package units and then they're moving air. You're actually causing more harm.
Yep.
Okay, so how do we support these solutions? I don't think I have to mention it too much, but First one is kind of the right track record. Y'all have strong relationships with your end users, I'm sure. So having the conversation with them, track record, hey, look, you know, we've been here a long time, we've been taking care of this for you, and we're going to continue to do so. I would imagine, I was going to ask this question earlier. So for those of you who actually do mechanical PMs as well as controls, have you been asked, hey, can y'all come a lot more frequent than you have been, or can can you check in on it more frequently, or can you change your service agreement? Yeah, I'll say.
Yeah, some have, and some have started to go back to saving money essentially.
Because they've been getting away with it, right? Yeah. Exactly right. Okay. Frontline experience. So I'm kind of an advocate of this. I don't know, if everybody's going to agree with me, but create a subject matter expert within your organization that can have this conversation and leverage that resource, right? And send that individual out in the field for individuals. So, yeah, I think that as we get down this path and just having that resource in-house, whether we do, and you're going to hear a little bit more about this tomorrow from ADM with regards to enhanced facilities and something they took direction to do, to say, hey, we're going to have a team of subject matter experts around the country that can go have conversations with end users about their buildings and their energy use, their IAQ, and such. It'll be a continuous cycle. So I would encourage you all to sit in so frontline experience. The competitive landscape, right? So who else is knocking on their door? And, what are they bringing to the table that's different, or just the fact that they're there? And are they having these discussions, right? Back to what we talked about earlier. So, any other color of that?
No, I mean, again, I think that coming from a position of, having a partner like KMC is great because it builds credibility to what you're bringing to the table. And it's so important to sit and listen to those issues rather than walking anywhere. We talked about it earlier. Sometimes I've been in just meetings where somebody's trying to accelerate some process and not stop talking for an hour, right? I always told them, if I'm talking with a customer, that means they're not, right? I'm not listening to what they need, what their issues are, what they can afford, what they can't afford, what their true issues are, and finding out how my solution can apply to their problem. And again, if you don't know your competitors and what they're doing, what they bring to the table, what they do better, what they do worse, you're giving yourself a disservice. I mean, you have to pretty much know more about that than you do about your own product because, 95% of the time you're going to go in there and say that the product here sucks. They're not going to tell you, they're not going to tell them why. They're just going to say they do. Can't trust them. Ours is so much better. Why? If you have an educated customer, they're going to well, explain that to me. Tell me why it's better. Show me the efficiencies of the game using this versus this. So educating your customers and making sure that, when you get to the market specific case studies and things like that, proof of concept, that's so important as you're proving out the solution that you're trying to give people. So.
Just briefly, these last two, I think they're kind of interchangeable, right? To do a proof of concept, and we call it paying tuition, and going out to your end users and saying, okay, is it important or not? Okay, it is great. So give us the opportunity to report your IQ for you in one manner. Let us prove it out to you. And then taking that information with their permission and creating case studies. Because anybody who sat in that airflow measuring station presentation this morning, when the data popped up, it was, wow, it's really that good. Okay, nothing works better than case studies and data. So, proven track record, right? Good?
Yeah.
All right. And then the engagement process, right? So, at the risk of sounding like we're trying to teach y'all how to sell when you already know how to sell, I know a lot of you in this room know how to sell because I've been in the field with you. So I'll just say, just bear with us because we want to talk about two different paths here, right? The first is the end user. So would you agree that we're going to have a different conversation with end users than we're going to have consulting or specifying engineers, right? If you think back to the title of this breakout, right, specifying IAQ, That is a longer or deeper discussion than just sitting down and saying we're going to specify. So let's talk about end users first. Yeah, raise awareness. Well, good news is there's a virus that's doing that for us right now. So I think everyone is pretty aware. As far as creating a perpetual revenue stream, right? Again, you're going to be there. This is a long-term deliverable. I don't think we're ever going to go back to a pre-pandemic normal with regards to IAQ or ventilating volumes. Now, we're going to see people get complacent, right? I mean, I've seen it around my own community with masks and whatnot, just folks are like, yeah, we're back out in space, complacency. So that's something that we'll have to fight. But again, that revenue stream is going to be available to y'all because it is another service delivery. And then again, this one we touched on so many times because it's so important. You know, what are the costs? And again, it's the cost of doing nothing that is the greatest driver of all these. People want to know, and they're going to be asked, and if they can't produce it, they're going to have issues. And again, societal impact. Are y'all familiar with this term? And who's behind it? People who know a lot about indoor air quality, right? Like Lady Gaga. And, you know,
J-Lo.
say it.
Jennifer Lopez.
Yes, Jennifer Lopez. One of the greats in the automation indoor air quality. But what do they have? It's a lot of people who listen to them for some odd reason. And it's out there. So folks are, you know, the societal impact of this is definitely apparent. So we're going to be asked about it.
You can sell the Lady Gaga, that'd be great. I mean, how many tens of millions of followers? I mean, again, whether it's coming from somebody who's qualified to say it or not, if it's coming from somewhere and it's educating people, that's great because 50 million people might see something she sends about having indoor air quality or asking questions. If you're a student in college, asking questions at the university, what are you doing to keep me safe? 15 million people more people are going to see it than the 33 people that follow me on Instagram. So that's a fact. It's more power.
I did reach out to her. You know, I asked her on Instagram to say, look, we're doing this thing in Nashville. Come see us. Nothing back yet. If I hear anything about it, I'll let you know. And then consulting engineers. So I'm going to step back because guess what? That's what Brad does. So I'm going to let him speak to this about, okay, somebody came into my office, what would get my attention? I'll let you work.
Yeah, I mean, it's owners and end users, unfortunately, really don't know anything about specs. Some do. I mean, there's a lot of really good, I was talking about healthcare, it's kind of what I live in 95% of the time. Everybody thinks hospitals are great place to go, they're on top of stuff. Couldn't be further from the truth. Almost every single one, 9 out of 10 don't have their own standards, don't have their own specs, don't know what to ask for. It's scary, really. I mean, when it comes to carpet and resilient flooring, yes, all day long. They know exactly what color you want, they give you that font, they know what color paint you're supposed to mix for it. But when it comes to outside air conditions, what they want for their controls, don't have it. And again, that's just not knowing. That's the education. They go to the engineer and say, well, just we're relying on you. Unfortunately, engineers and consulting engineers are also going to rely on you. They don't have the hours. A lot of times I've been in meetings where they don't even ask the customer to say, what do you currently have here for your building automation system? And I've been in meetings, well, let me tell you, they have 4 in this one hospital. They have 4. There's 4 computer screens downstairs. I just spent the last 2 years getting them on one front end, and over my dead body, you're going to bring a 5th one in here. And it actually happened. They came in and brought a brand new, as part of a brand new wing they put on a building, they brought in flat spec train. There wasn't a stitch of train anywhere in that 700,000 square foot building. There was JCI, there was Siemens. Either one of those would have been good because they were actually there. It would have proved to me you actually did your research and asked questions about what's going on in this building. But that's not what happened. So again, they're recycling specs. Unless they're told to do something different, or they're paid to do something different, they're going to give you what they always get because guess what? That's what they've always used. So the times when I first got out of college, I was working for a design firm. The only times I learned about new products really that were outside of lunch hours, right? You get an hour of their time. And how engaged are they? They want you to buy them a free lunch. That hour's up, they run, what do they get out of it? So it's really, in my opinion, the engineers are going to change when the owners and end users change. They're going to force them to be better. I was just watching on the plane right here. I don't know if everybody's watched Ted Lasso. Great show. And in one part of the second season, there was a little girl with boards. She was offended by her classmate that gave her a bad Christmas present. And at the very end, she said, do better. And that's what we need to do. We need to force people, engineer. Everybody thinks, there's terrible engineers. I can be a terrible engineer. You don't know that. It's the same way. There's people that are going to be on the forefront of technology and doing stuff and want to learn and want to do things better. Ask their owners, what do you want? It can't always be pro minimum, right? I mean, you want to be better than that. How am I going to sell your hospital? How am I going to sell as a landlord? Come be in my building. What am I advertising in the lobby? Is it just that I'm LEED certified? Great. You're LEED certified that first year. Prove to me that you're still LEED certified. Guess what? I can guarantee you're not. So what are you promoting? Be better. And I think that's part of it is we've got to get in front, we've got to educate them and say, you know what? Pretty soon it's going to be out of your hands, Mr. Engineer. These owners are going to tell you what they want. And they're going to come to you, hopefully, they're going to pay you to write them a brand new spec, but at the same time, they're going to hold you more accountable than you are now.
And then, again, just touch on the commissioning piece. Retro commissioning, right? And again, anybody who has any gray in their beard can tell you that this is the process. Does your building need a healthy checker, or does it need a baseline, right? Do we need to take it back to where it used to be? And then, how close is it? The monitoring-based piece, which, again, I love the fact that we got feedback that it is happening out there where there are folks who, do we need to go in and upgrade the system now? Is it, let me just pick something, right? Is it an OLED2 platform that we need to integrate with, and bring in the data, and normalize it and such? And continuous, be from adjustment. I like this sort of thing, that driven. Very important, right? So once we set a baseline, let's stick to it and make sure we build right. Anything else?
Yeah, I think commissions overlooked a lot. Even as you get to like new building commissioning, a lot of times people like say I can't afford it. And again, first cost versus long-term cost of that building. If you have somebody there that's an advocate for the owner from day one, going back to the specs, that commissioning agent knows the correct things to ask for, but the owner might not be developing that OPR. They're saying this is what you need to be asking for, this is how it should be designed. And oh, by the way, after you ask for it, we're going to make sure that that's what's actually installed and how it's performing. That when you walk into that building, every sequence of operation has been tested, every VAV box has been tested, and that you're getting exactly what you want. That's how you're going to start getting these people to spend more money, and you can prove to them that they're getting exactly what they're paying for, and it's going to pay off in the long run.
Okay. So, again, next step, right? I know you all know your markets, so I'll just kind of say it. I know. Back to the subject matter expert. Again, I think having someone in your organization, that is designated, and I'm not asking you to add head count, because I know we all, controls guys are easy to find right now. I'm sure you would agree with that, right? Be proactive. Talking about the mission, talking about, well, how do you know what your building is supposed to be doing? And do you? Outside of that, everything has changed. I mean, it changed 18 months ago when they locked us all out of our buildings. And then when they started reopening, and you guys probably agree, folks have been slow to come back to work. I think there's two ideas that I have around that. One is folks learn how to not telecommute. Like, okay, I'm not sure I need to go sit in the cubicle anymore, right? That's been a tough sell for some building owners. And the other is people are reluctant to come back in because they're nervous. Is it safe for me to come back in, right? So how do we assuage those concerns? We give them good information and say, okay, these are the standards, these are the metrics, and if you get these, your building should be safe. We can't make it bulletproof. At least we can take some steps in the right direction.
Yeah, I think the embrace of open is huge because people are finally asking the questions. Hey, Mr. Engineer, when you design my buildings, how come I don't have control over this, and this? well, you didn't want that, well, I want it now, right? I mean, people are asking better questions because they're becoming more educated. Granted, it takes the pandemic to do it, but unfortunately, that's what it takes to create change, right? People have to lose money, people unfortunately have to lose their lives. I mentioned it in the other one, Legionella, right? I mean, that drove change across the board. But again, it takes something bad to happen for us to change and do something. And it's allowing people to kind of get out of jail free card, right? If there's somebody that knows they've been ignoring air quality, hey, it might be getting some money to make change, great, I'm gonna go do it now. So I think it's a great time, not only to sell equipment, but to educate people and say, you know what, this isn't going away. And not that you need to prevent it from happening right now, but what's the next thing that's gonna come 10, 15, 20 years down the line, and you might prepare for that when it happens.
Yep. I actually took that slide out this morning because, so I had this grand idea, I love being accountable to people, right? I had this grand idea, I said, you know what guys, we're gonna put together a process flow for engaging end users and consulting engineers. I think it'll be really slick, Here's how you do step one, step two, and I had this vision in my head, this video diagram. And then Jesse and I were talking about it in the weeks coming into the presentation. Man, I got like 3 or 4 steps in this thing, it's just not clicking with me, I don't like it, and I told them I'm just not putting it in. So that's why that slide came up there, because I intended to give you all like a little handout, it was laminated, and these guys are smarter than that. I mean, 3, 4 steps, no, I'm not doing it. So there you go, that's Brian Beat Accountant. So thank you. Any questions, comments?
I got a question just for the audience in general. Is anybody thinking about starting up the commissioning side of the organization or partnering up with a local commissioning agent?
Already have it.
Already have?
Yeah.
How's that process going?
It's going fantastic.
You
They're
do it
busy,
yourself?
they're real busy. They have a backlog of work. It's a whole commissioning department. It's not just our guy that was our tab guy. It's someone who's known in the industry. She's got a long history. She was an independent third-party commissioning agent. Now she works for us. And we build that into every job that we do now. On a mechanical side and our control side. And then we also sell it as a service to our customers. And customers are eating it up. And all it does is create more pull-through work for us.
Way to go.
But it's not utilized enough in the industry, commissioning, it's just not. And again,
It used to be a dirty word, right?
I mean, to me,
It's like, ooh.
to me, that just makes you better than your competition, right? Because you're holding yourself and other people accountable. I don't want to be low cost, I want to give you the best value. And if that means I'm going to provide commissioning and prove to you that I did the job I said I was going to do, Mr. Owner, you should be asking that of everybody, right?
So our commissioning team doesn't report to project managers. Our commissioning team reports direct to branch managers. That way, if they find an issue on a project that we've constructed, that it goes to that branch manager and gets taken care of. The report gets given to that project manager so they get correct, but they report direct up to branch managers rather than working for internal departments and project managers.
And we see that as just almost a nice bolt-on vertical for all of our partners. And I'm gonna put Mr. Nelson on the spot and ask him what he thinks about Asher 36. That whole thing's gonna go over.
I'll give the very direct answer. I think Asher 36 really did the dumbing down of consulting engineers. We just check a box and say, comply with Asher 36. And that'll be the extent of their knowledge of controls. And we're gonna all live with the consequences when it doesn't work.
Just generating more opportunity for that commission.
Yeah, 100%. Because when it doesn't work, and I wrote this right, I didn't even write this back. I said comply with 36, and now it falls onto us. There's a lot of gap between a canned blanket ASHRAE 36 written sequence and every building that's been constructed for the last 150 years. So,
I mean, if you can get analytics in from day one when you're doing commissioning, I mean, that makes you, as a commissioning agent or your building owner, so much easier because you can do so much more with less, right? I mean, from day one.
Yeah.
It's tremendous, yeah, I mean, that's another education piece is that, I don't know, again, I don't think it's like a lot of things in our industry hasn't explained well to owners and end users very well. A lot of times people just go in and be like, no, I don't need that. Again, first cost versus life cycle cost.
And unfortunately, what you mentioned earlier about consulting engineers having no fee, no time, I mean, it all conspires against that too, because there's not a curiosity then to learn about people.
Yeah, 100%.
Big, red, easy button.
Yeah. Sure is fun being the last guys to build it. That always works out well for us.
On that note, being the last guys in, let's get out.
Get out. Yeah. Like,
Thanks for attending.
Yeah, you know what I mean, let's get out.